Welcome back to The Breakdown, where we speak with elected officials and those running about the issues happening today, and then we break them down. Hi, I'm your host, Ziad Kassab, and our guest today is an American hero, retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General Doug Slocum, candidate for the 10th District for the United States Congress, whose fighter pilot's call sign was Odie. General, welcome to The Breakdown.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Z.
All right, thank you so much for having. First question for you: how'd you get the call sign Odie?
That's a great question. When I first joined the Arizona Guard, the National Guard down in Arizona, I was the youngest, newest fighter pilot they had. And they always had extra jobs for us to do. They gave me the job of cleaning up all the rooms after everybody. So I was kind of about down here below the janitor level. And I got to do that for a couple years, but it was a little girl who worked in the command post one day that says I was like Garfield's little dog Odie that always got kicked around and never complained about it. And she looked at me one day and went, "Urgh." And it stuck just like that. The call sign became Odie, so it's after Garfield's little dog.
And that's crazy how we get these nicknames. And if I grew up in the 80s, so anybody grew up in the States in the 80s, you know who Garfield is. Tell me about the 10th District. What area does that cover in Michigan?
The 10th District, to talk like a Michigander, I got to hold my hand up like this, all right? Yeah. So it's the northern half of Macomb County, so pretty much Hall Road and north, and then all the way up through the thumb. So it covers 6 counties.
Okay.
And there's a dip down around Harrison Township, and there's a dip down in Sterling Heights, or a little area down there. But for the most part, it's Hall Road north, all the way up through the thumb.
And Selfridge is in that district?
Yes, it does, over there on the far east side.
And you did some work at Selfridge Air Base?
I was the commander there for just shy of 5 years.
Wow, okay, wonderful, very wonderful, wonderful. Tell us a little bit about your history, your background in the Air Force and in the military.
Well, thanks for asking. 35 years. In fact, it was 35 years to the day I was blessed to be able to serve this country in uniform. 5 May 1984 till 5 May of this year. Till 2019.
Wow.
And being a fighter pilot, got to fly for all but 1 year out of that entire time, flying F-4s, F-16s, and then in the last part of my career, A-10s. But in Tucson, where I was for over 20 years of my career, we're the International F-16 Training Center. So I was blessed to be able to go out and work with countries all over the world, including countries in the Middle East, doing exercises, doing training, working with our allies, build that coalition capability so that we could work together. And then, of course, my 5 years before I moved here, I was back in Washington, D.C., where I got to work on safety, which is always a passion of mine, which is caring for people, but then also some time as the Inspector General, right up until I was selected and moved here in late 2014 and got to spend the last part of my years commanding some of the most amazing men and women you'd ever want to meet here in Southeast Michigan.
And so you did some work in Washington in the past?
I have, yes. It's an interesting place back in Washington, D.C.
Interesting is a kind word.
Well, it's one of my passions of why I'm running is because I think we need some good leadership back there.
Well, we really, really do. And, on a more serious note, there's a lot of crazy things happening in the world today.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit about your background, but before we get into kind of your message and what your campaign, we got to talk about what's happening in the world.
Sure.
And right now, what we're dealing with the situation in Iraq and in Iran, obviously, just starting with let's just start with President Trump taking action and bombing and killing at the Baghdad airport General Soleimani from the Iranian regime. Due to this, they understand there was an imminent threat. What are your thoughts on the president's response?
Well, having been part of the military, one of the things you know is that we have a very complex and capable intelligence system that's out there. That's a very broad, that we can learn a lot and we have a lot of information. The one thing I can tell you is as we watch this on the news, we don't get the whole and complete story. We don't know all the information that's provided to our decision makers, all the way up to the chain to include the president. So when the president made a decision, and he made a decision based in the best interests of our country to do what he thought was right. So from my perspective, he gets the benefit of the doubt because he knew what was going on. He had all the information to be able to make a good decision, and he made it and took action.
And it was warranted decision. And it's crazy now. We have some people saying they're upset that he did it. You hear this in different political parties that they're so upset and they're almost defending the Iranian general.
Well, to make judgments and to make statements based on less than complete information, which we have to admit this is, a lot of times to make negative or partisan statements is really just counterproductive. It really doesn't help us as a whole, as a country, to come together and to make good decisions one way or the other. So, once again, I trust our commander in chief that he did make a bold decision to take action in the best interest of this country, and I support that.
And when he did, the Iranians then, a few days later, responded with missile strikes again in Iraq, targeting U.S. Um, equipment or
A facility,
a base there. Thank God there were no casualties there. Do you think that their response was, and there's been discussion as you hear in the media, do you think that they inadvertently missed certain areas or intentionally did not cause casualties as a fear of a aggressive response by the United States? Or do you think that that was something just to kind of show, yes, we're going to respond, no, we don't want war, but we can't just sit back and do nothing? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's hard to get into people's minds and know
Right.
specifically what was going on, or we don't have access to the intelligence of why people did what they did. But the reality is that we were prepared. Even though there was a strike, there were no casualties. And that just speaks to the professionalism of the men and women who served in our military, as well as a very capable system that we have that is allowed to give early warning, that allows us to have the right force protection in place so that we make sure we take care of those who are taking care of us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then you have Iran shoots down a Ukrainian plane with Iranian nationals on it, tries to cover it up for 3 days, and then comes out and admits to shooting down the Ukrainian plane. And today we have protests in the streets of that country, aggressive protesting. I understand there's tear gassing of citizens. Your take on all that?
Well, it's always a tragedy when something happens in the fog of war and the confusion. When there's something that happens, and certainly when innocent lives are lost. And my condolences, of course, to all the families, all the different nationalities that were lost in that particular incident. How it happened, I'm not sure we're ever going to know the whole story. All we know is that it did indeed happen. To come out and deny it and then say that, yes, we were culpable in what happened, certainly that looks bad. And it's what we're seeing play out, at least on the television at this point, is that it's not sitting well within the population there within Iran. Um, it's a tragedy. We need to do everything we can to prevent. Nobody wants hostility. Nobody wants to have open armed conflict of any type. We always want to look for peace first in everything that we're doing. And once again, it's just a tragedy. We need to keep all these individuals in our prayers.
Thank you. Have you worked in the past with the Middle Eastern community during your time serving in the Air Force?
Well, certainly. We were the International F-16 Training Center when I was down in Tucson, Arizona. So I have extensive experience working with most of our allied countries over in the Middle East, as well as in my time in Washington, D.C., working with our coalition. So training them, being familiar with them, getting to spend a lot of time with a lot of these other cultures is always great, both here in the United States and overseas. At my time here at Selfridge at Michigan's hometown air base, one of the things in the Guard is we always want to accurately reflect the community around us. We are a citizen force that belongs to the state. We are the community itself. So I made it a point to try and reach out, especially to the Chaldean community. And it was about a 2.5-year project. And I was so excited when we finally, after 2.5 years, were able to swear in, I believe it was, the first ever U.S. Air Force Chaldean chaplain into the National Guard out there at Selfridge. So doing that, I got to meet a lot of our community leaders, the Chaldean Foundation. It's just wonderful, and I hope it's just the start of, once again, just accurately reflecting our community and being diverse the way that we need to be.
And I know the chaplain, Anthony Cathal, is a wonderful, wonderful friend of mine, a wonderful guy, one of the best guys that you could ever know, really. Great-hearted guy. Is there a lot of Middle Eastern people serving at Selfridge?
They're not, and that's exactly what I was trying to address at this point.
Okay.
Is that, it takes a while to recruit, train, and have somebody get proficient at a career, so it takes a long lead time there. So I wanted to make sure that we were going out, we were reaching out to the community, because I think there's a lot of misinformation or lack of information, I guess would be a better way to put it, is, well, what's serving in the military mean? And, well, in this tight-knit community, if I go serve in the military, they're going to ship me all around the world. Well, that's not true necessarily in the National Guard. The National Guard stays in one place for a long period of time and belongs to the state unless they're put on federal service. So it's an opportunity to be able to serve your state and nation, yet still stay part of the community in the long term, as well as get some wonderful benefits, including educational benefits, as well as a part-time income in a lot of cases. So,
And is there any recruiting effort on behalf of Selfridge to reach out to this community and bring them in?
that's exactly
That's
what
what
we
you're
were
saying?
trying to do,
Okay.
especially with Father Cathala and bringing
Sure.
him on board, was to have that outreach, to have that in, to be able to get those messages out, to reach out to the communities, to be able to have them say it's okay to come in here and do this. Lead by example. Father Cathala was being a leader.
He really
that's
is.
what we look for in individuals, to be able to break new ground.
I follow him on Instagram, and like I said, he's a friend of mine for a long time. So whenever I see him out there, I said, "Oh, that's Anchor Bay," and I love to go take the boat over there. It's just a really beautiful area. So tell me what made you decide to run for Congress? Right, 35 years in the military, you certainly accomplished, a whole lot. Well respected by your colleagues. You're a hero for all the work you've done. So it's quite the shift from being a general to being a congressman. So what was it that you said, I want to do this?
Well, I retired in May and started on in the next career. I mean, I didn't even take a break. People they said, hey, you should take a break for a while. I was like, nope, I'm right into working on a follow-on career, ready to go. But when the incumbent in this seat announced that he wasn't going to run again, my phone started ringing. People were really interested in talking to me.
So people reached out to you and said, hey, you should do this.
Yeah. There was a lot of conjecture right up front, and to be quite honest, it wasn't an easy decision. I won't say it's been a passion of mine to be a politician by any stretch of the imagination. So as people were reaching out to me, we started talking, my wife and my daughter and I, and as a family, as we continued to look at this, said, you know what, I think we need to make a decision. I'm not a politician. I'm a political outsider. I have no political background, per se, coming into this. But we decided that we need some principled leadership back in Washington, D.C. And as a family, we decided to step away from what I was doing and to take this new path and to pursue this. I think it's going to be a great thing. And I think I'd like to continue the type of leadership we were able to have out there at Selfridge and the community engagement and caring for people and extend that to the 10th District of Michigan and, for that matter, to all of Southeast of Michigan.
And it's really a family decision. It's not something you can just say, hey, honey, I've decided I want to run for Congress.
My wife has been extremely supportive. In a phone call when she was visiting her parents in Wisconsin, we were talking about it. I was still on the fence, and she was very supportive, and her comment to me was, Odie, you were never destined to have a normal life. She said, you're an extraordinary person. These are extraordinary circumstances. You just need to realize you were born to do this. The nice part to me about a lot of this, outside of having a wonderful, supportive family, is I don't need this as a job. I'm not doing this because I need to do this. I'm doing it because I want to do this. I want to continue caring for people, and that's my passion.
I think a lot of folks in our community, in our country, are kind of tired of what we've been seeing for, going on decades now. And I think people really like a fresh view, fresh perspective of what's going on and what's happening. And really to get some people in there that can bring some common sense to the table and shake things up for the right reasons. So I want to thank you for taking that lead, because we know it's a sacrifice to run for Congress. It's an honor to serve, but it's also comes with a cost. Am I right?
Indeed it does.
Yeah.
Indeed it does.
So your campaign, your values. What are the core values of the campaign?
Well, just like in the Air Force, we have core values that kind of define who we are. And it's impossible to ingrain those, to get rid of those. They become ingrained in you after a while. In the Air Force, it's integrity, service, and excellence. In other words, doing the right things for the right reasons and being a person of your word. Always looking to continually improve as you go forward. And then having that rational preoccupation with the priorities of other people and things that we do. People ask me all the time, where do you stand on specific issues? You're never going to know what's going to come in the future. But as I say, I'm going to put those three things up, and when I look in the mirror, I'm going to make sure I'm staying true to who I am
Yeah.
in everything that I do.
Beautiful. General, lastly, your message to our community. What do you want the Middle Eastern community, the Middle Eastern American community here in the United States to know about you, and what's your message to that community?
Well, I want to bring principled leadership back to Washington, D.C. I've got 35 years' experience of serving people and serving my country, and I want to make sure that our country continues to be safe, our country continues to be strong, both here as well as abroad. We need to make sure we're doing the right things, that we're caring for those men and women who are serving so selflessly out there for us. Next is I want to make sure that we have a very strong economy, because it solves so many issues if we can make sure that our economy is predictably growing, that we have a path forward. People like stability. It brings jobs. It brings so many things that it solves in its own right. And lastly is we need to take care of those who've taken care of us, which means taking care of our veterans. There are so many veterans. Just here in Michigan, almost 600,000 men and women who have served this country, and we need to do a better job of caring for them. So if I was to say there's three things that I'm really standing on, this is a wonderful country. We have lots of opportunity here, and I'm just looking forward to the opportunity to take care of all the men and women of Southeast Michigan.
General, thank you so much for your time today, sir. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, General Slocum is a friend of mine, as well as a very honorable man. We ask our community that you support him in his campaign and keep your eye on him. You can follow him on Slocum for Congress, Slocum for Congress on Facebook, or slocumforcongress.com.
Correct.
As well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us on The Breakdown. We'll see you next time as we break it down. Have a good night.